This episode has been reproduced from the former Mommy Track Daddy Whispers podcast, rebranded as Birth Agni podcast. It was created from my own experience of having urinary incontinence in my last postpartum 7 years ago, meaning I could not hold urine. I would leak drops, especially when I started weight training again. This has been a wealth of information that women should have access to, and hence a reproduction is here to remind you of what matters. Welcome to the Birth Agni podcast, the fire that births us and transforms us. This is a space where women reclaim birth on their own terms, where deep ancient knowing meets primal courage. We talk birth, womanhood, breastfeeding, parenting, and the quiet power of choosing differently. Choosing of our own. Come as you are, leave more rooted. I'm Divya Kapoor, a childbirth educator, lactation counselor, trainee traditional midwife, and doula, disintegrating the politics of birth, one story at a time. Welcome to Mommy Track Daddy Whispers podcast, Season 3.
I think one thing to consider is everyone has had a pregnancy, and look at how much you have changed in your pregnancy. Look at how much your abdomen has changed. Your pelvis has changed. All a Kegel is to tighten the pelvic floor. So the holes in the muscles, like the holes in the pelvic floor, should close, and everything should have a lifting action. I think that someone needs to start the conversation, so that I find women just feel so alone, and they think, well, am I supposed to just live with this? Or, do I have to just deal with this because I had babies? And it all comes down to our quality of life, doesn't it?
My name is Divya, and in today's episode, we are talking about pelvic floor health issues. And we have a special guest with us who helps us understand how you should approach postpartum healing. But before that, here's something that I wanted to share with you. I posted a picture of mine exercising one of these weekends. And a friend came back and messaged me saying, "Oh Divya, wow, you started lifting." And I said, "Yeah, I recently figured out that I could." And I asked her about her back pain postpartum. I remember that she hinted on that sometime back. And she was typing, and right then Devi came in and we went into the kitchen and made the breakfast and everything. Half an hour later, I went back to my phone and there were 5 messages. It said, "I went to a physiotherapist. They made me do belly breathing. They made me do pelvic floor exercises. And I'm better. I'm absolutely better." And I wrote back saying, "Oh wow, that's great. I'm so glad you figured that out." And she said, "Yeah, it was not a conscious choice. I did not know that could help. I just went." And she went on to say that her mother-in-law at this age is leaking urine. And she said, "I'm glad that I was able to find that guidance. I wish we were guided better. We all wish we are guided better." And to bring that guidance on, we have today with us Melissa DeSouls. She is a pelvic floor health physiotherapist and founder of Mommy Berries. She's a mom of 2 and lives an absolutely active lifestyle. I love her Instagram page. She has these wonderful, fun analogies to understand the complex problems and complex issues related to pelvic floor health. And she has an extensive postgraduate training in both male and female pelvic health. And she has a special interest in perinatal health, which is why she's here with us to help us better understand pelvic floor health issues. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm so honored to be here.
Yeah, so Melissa, like we discussed about my friend's experience and, what happened with her mom, that at this age, she's figuring out that maybe something's not right down there and she's leaking urine. So to start with, just to explain the jargons. What is a perineum? What are we talking about when we say pelvic health, perineal health, perineum?
Yeah. So I think you speak for a lot of women, and in saying that, this is sometimes an uncomfortable topic to talk about. And I would say, first of all, it obviously depends on the culture, right? Every culture is very different in its beliefs and its ways of doing things. So you have to understand that, like, I'm Canadian, and so things might be different in my country. And so I don't understand your culture as much as I understand mine. So in some of this, it might not be the same in your culture, and that's okay. But I do think what you're doing is so beneficial, because I think that someone needs to start the conversation, so that I find women just feel so alone, and they think, well, am I supposed to just live with this? Or, do I have to just deal with this because I had babies? And it all comes down to our quality of life, doesn't it? So I find you're right. I think it helps to first just say it's okay to talk about this stuff, because you aren't alone. You're not the only person, if you're listening, that sometimes leaks urine. And I think when you understand that there are muscles that help us pee and poop, then you can understand that it's kind of normal. And if I just describe to people that are listening, if you think of the bone in the very front of your pelvis, so I would say everybody that's listening, feel the bone that's right at the front of your pelvis. It's kind of right around your bladder. And you'll notice when you trace that bone lower and lower, it ends and it becomes your clitoris. That is where your pelvic floor starts. And it goes all the way back to your tailbone, or just past your anus, your bum hole, okay? And then all the way out to your sit bones, those big bones that you sit on. So it's like a big diamond of muscles, and those muscles have holes in them. So it's like a hammock or a basket of muscles that sit at the bottom of our pelvis, like an undercarriage. And there's holes in those muscles, and those holes control our pee. So the first hole at the front is our urethra, or our pee hole. And then the one right behind is our vaginal hole. And then which we have babies out of in a vaginal birth. And then the one behind that is our anus, where we poop. And the muscles of the pelvic floor are very automatic. We don't need to think about them. They automatically tighten when we do things like cough or sneeze or lift something, so that we don't pee and poop when we don't want to. But then when we sit down on the toilet, those muscles let go so that we can empty our organs. And all of that happens, it's supposed to happen without us even thinking about it. But you can imagine, so in the perineum, by the way, is the area of muscle that sits between the vaginal hole and the anus hole. So the perineum is just an area of the pelvic floor. And like I said, I think just understanding that babies come out of that hole, or that pee comes out of that hole, helps people understand, oh, there's muscles down there. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, we don't really think about it. The moment we start thinking about it is when we become pregnant. Okay. Everybody tells us, do kegels. That's something that's going to help you with birth. And you need to do kegels thereafter. That's it. That's what we talk about when we talk about pelvic floor health. So I did listen to your podcast, and it was amazing. The insights were amazing. You did talk about in one of your podcast episodes that it's more than that. It's not just kegels. I mean, kegels, again, is something that may not be done correctly, because, I mean, imagining it to be a diamond hole is not something I see in a lot of YouTube videos. So I think I was doing it wrong. When I heard it, I was trying to do it, and I could figure out that I was not moving my bum muscles. And all through I did kegels in my pregnancy, I was moving my bum muscles. So I wasn't doing it right. So what is it more that is probably required, or probably we don't know of? We only know of kegels. So yeah.
I think if you think, I always tell people, because it's the pelvic floor is so mysterious for a few reasons. One, it lives inside of us, so we can't see it and we can't really picture it. Two, its jobs are embarrassing, related to sex and pooping and farting and peeing, and we don't talk about that. So it's not normal to talk about these muscles. And as I already touched on, we also aren't used to thinking about them. So you're not weird if you don't understand these muscles. Nobody seems to understand them. And that's kind of because they usually do such a good job without us thinking about them. All a Kegel is is to tighten the pelvic floor. So the holes in the muscles, like the holes in the pelvic floor, should close and everything should have a lifting action. So I always describe to people in a way that they can understand, and often that's thinking of a different body part. So say, for example, your knee. Your knee is healthy if it bends and straightens and has strength. Does that make sense? It's not just one thing, you need to have all of it, right? And that's the same with the pelvic floor. It needs to be able to tighten, which is a kegel. It needs to be able to let go, which has no name. And then it also needs to be able to work in the rest of our body, right? Yeah. And so I think that you're right. There's this belief that if you just do kegels, if you just tighten, the whole world will be perfect down there. But if you have a knee problem and all you do is just tighten it over and over and over again, will that guarantee you get rid of the problem? Not necessarily, right? And I think, again, if you look at a picture of what the pelvis looks like and look at what the pelvic floor looks like and look at what the uterus looks like, when you think about it, a lot of times women hear that they need to have a strong pelvic floor to push their baby out. But when you look at it and understand, it's actually when we go into labor, the uterus tightens, the uterus pushes the baby out, the pelvic floor needs to let it out. And so I think, women will often look at you and, oh, wow, I never thought about that before. So I think first, just having the understanding and be able to picture it is the number one thing, because usually people will put the dots together and understand, oh, I get it. And so learning how to also let those muscles go or relax is just as important for allowing a baby to come out.
Yeah, I get it. So it's not just tightening and strengthening it. It's also to be able to release it, because you have to let the baby out. That's the job. You have to let the baby out in pregnancy. So probably that will help you. Kegels will help you with everything else, but you also need to learn to relax those muscles. Am I right?
Yes, but also think about if you had knee muscles, like muscles around the knee that were just tight, would that make them good muscles or would that make them problematic muscles? And that's the thing, is tight and strong are a bit different. And I think that's also confusing. And I think people think I should just kegel, and then relax when the baby comes out. But think, is there any other muscle that's happy in our body if it's tight all the time? No, right? It would get tired. And that's where people are often surprised. They picture that they're leaking because they're weak. But often it's because the muscles are holding more tension than they want to. And so they fatigue, right? And so no muscle can be tight all the time. It'll get tired, and that's where you might leak or dribble. Yeah.
So there's more to just, there's so much more to understand. And also to draw from what we discussed about my friend's experience, can these issues, little issues, if they're not registered, probably you're just going about with your life, you don't really realize a little bit of leaking here and there, can it translate into something adverse later in life?
Well, again, I would turn it over to a different area of the body, because if I said, let's say we lined up 10 people and they had a knee surgery, okay? And then you take those 10 people and you don't do any rehab or any exercises with them after the surgery, how would they do, right? And you'd probably guess some of them might be fine. Some of them might have problems, but it kind of depends what they need to do. If some of these people are in a wheelchair, maybe it doesn't affect them. But if they're runners, or if they have lots of kids they need to lift, or if the demands on their body are higher, they might have problems. Does that make sense? And so that's what I would say the same thing about the muscles involved in pregnancy and birth. It doesn't mean that your body will fall apart, but you might find that the jobs related to the pelvic floor aren't functioning very well. And yes, it would be the same as the knee. You might find that over time and putting more and more time and stress on the body, that the problem gets worse. And the other thing to note is that we go through menopause as women, and menopause is a huge change to our body and our hormones. And you see a lot of women, because of that hormone change, it changes the tissues and the muscles. And a lot of women come in at that time and start to notice, wow, now it's really bothering me. So yes, as a general rule, not to create fear and say, oh my gosh, you've got to deal with this or else. But yes, chances are good that over time you might notice that it progresses.
And also
Yeah.
just to extend on what you said, for example, I broke my ligaments, two ligaments on my knee, and the doctor said, you are not an athlete, you do not need to undergo reconstructive surgery. You'll be just fine after physiotherapy. That's what we did after my leg was like in one place for 30 to 35 days, and it was fine. It's fine for me. But when I started dancing, I realized no, it still needs work because it used to bend.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why I think you'll see that some women, they'll notice in the early rest period when they're resting after they've had a baby, the symptoms might not bother them. But then as they start doing more lifting or exercising or anything, that then they notice, oh, now I'm leaking, So exactly.
And I think saying that different people in different jobs that they're doing will feel the body very differently. So you cannot compare. It's best to be prepared and do what you can.
Yeah.
What would be, like, for example, you said that once you've delivered for the first 6 weeks, you're just overwhelmed with the new chores, taking care of the baby and just getting used to the new routine and learning breastfeeding and all of that. So we don't really focus. At 6 weeks, that's a standard, I think, everywhere in India also. At 6 weeks mark, you go to your doctor for a regular checkup. Unless you have something bothering you before that, you would go, otherwise you won't. So is there some way to diagnose if there's some issue, if you don't feel it? I mean, there'll be some pointers that you can tell us that, okay, this is your self-check method. You can do these basic things just to figure out in that 6 week period. Because I also heard on your podcast that you said it's good to start early. So just elaborating on that, what would you say? Yeah.
You're right. I think from most of the people I talk to around the world that 6 weeks is kind of a standard. And that's because that's what our body needs everywhere, at kind of a tissue level and a cellular level to have healing. But I would say, and this is where it's going to differ a little bit culturally, because in our culture, we don't live with our extended family usually. We don't have a lot of help. So I think in some cultures, moms have to do way more initially. And generally that first 6 weeks is very important for rest, just like it would be after you broke your leg and you had a cast on, or like your knee that you just talked about. That first few weeks is very important for healing. However, I would also say that it's important for, to decrease the swelling and everything. But as soon as your cast or brace or whatever you had came off, you probably didn't start doing hard things right away. Do you know what I mean? You kind of have to gradually progress.
Yeah.
In my culture, I would say that it's normal that women try to rest that first 6 weeks and then they try to get back to all the activities that they really love. Running, cycling, lifting weights. And so they go from doing nothing to doing a little too much. And I would also say that as a new mom, we can't completely rest. I mean, you have a baby to lift around. You're not getting great sleep. You have to get out of awkward positions. You might have a toddler that wants to be picked up. And so I think that helping women understand how to use their body and their muscles to their advantage, because yes, they've been through something big during birth, but they're not broken.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're not broken. They need some help, but they're not broken. And I think that that's where kind of maybe the kegels or the pelvic floor understanding comes in. If you understand how to tighten those muscles, then when you go to lift up your baby, or maybe when you're having a hard time standing up from the couch, you know how to engage those muscles to help you. Maybe you're going to the bathroom and it hurts to pee or it hurts to poop, and you know how to relax those muscles to help that happen. So that's where I would say there's a benefit to not only learning this during pregnancy, but to start getting those muscles moving. Because I don't know if it was the same when you had your knee injury. that you still want to wiggle your toes and move your leg for the swelling and for the movement. So I would say in that first 6 weeks, the goal is not to get strong. It's just getting the body used to moving again and the pelvic floor used to moving. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. And I think there are two very important aspects that you've touched upon. One is, again, vaginal birth extensively uses the birth canal. Your muscles down there, they dilate, they efface, and the baby comes out. And for example, somebody has a cesarean. So there can be multiple conditions here. You just went to cesarean because there were complications, or you were in labor and then it was an emergency cesarean. So your muscles did get used, they dilate, they efface. So for somebody who's undergone cesarean, does this entire discussion that we're talking exactly applies? It's as relevant in degrees, or there can be a difference? I think that's an obvious question that a lot of us might have.
Well, I think it's interesting. For some reason, moms that have had a cesarean feel like they should be immune to any problems. They think that they shouldn't have any of them. But I always say in the clinic, I see just as many moms that have had a cesarean birth as that have had a vaginal birth. So I think one thing to consider is everyone has had a pregnancy, and look at how much you have changed in your pregnancy. Look at how much your abdomen has changed, your pelvis has changed. And so just understanding that you went through a big change similar to the moms that had a vaginal birth. Some moms that have had a cesarean birth have pushed. They've tried to push before. So they might have some of the effects of pelvic floor muscles that have already tried to stretch. And then also just understanding that the muscles involved in a cesarean birth. So obviously they have to cut through many different layers of tissue, and the abdominal muscles are affected. The abdominal muscles are very closely related to the pelvic floor muscles. They work together as a team. They don't work in isolation. And so you'll find that, in a vaginal birth, maybe those moms feel a bit more sore down below. In an abdominal birth or a cesarean birth, they might feel more sore in their midsection, but the parts are connected. And so I usually tell people, because you'll notice when you do a pelvic floor tightening or a kegel, you should feel a little bit of something happening in your abdomen, right? That's your abdominal muscles, working together. And so that's what I teach people to do, is understand how they work together. Because after your baby comes out, your belly feels very different, right? It's almost like a balloon has been popped. And none of those muscles remember how to work together anymore. They're kind of confused. And so just reminding them how to work together again, because those muscles are so important. Yeah. They are the center of our body, and I think of them like the foundation of our house. The foundation of your house is very important so that the pretty things on the outside look nice. You need to have the foundation. And so I think that that's kind of where they're similar, is that the muscles affected are related.
Yeah. And we aren't attached. If you're not exercising as much, we're not attached to we're not focused on how it's moving. So we're moving a finger, somewhere else is also moving. And that's amazing. That sometimes, seems miraculous to me. I think all of it is really miraculous. Also, just to talk about this, that there might be some women, and especially in India, when we talk about, we are getting more and more into lifting weights and everything. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But generally, not many of us are exercising. I'll be very honest. And I'm generalizing. Yeah, please. If you exercise, don't think I'm talking about you, but I'm just generally saying that many of us may not be exercising as much as against just walking, cycling, running. And then we suddenly realize, okay, pregnancy, the doctor recommends, you should start exercising. So we go into that exercise mode. And then postpartum, the body suddenly feels, it's not mine. It definitely looks very different. We don't look like ourselves in the mirror. And then again, the first thing that comes into mind, like you said, is cycling, walking, running. And there is this hurry to get into that mode. So I started lifting 2 years postpartum. And later I realized that something in my core is not right. Being on my knees, being on my toes while, sweeping the house and everything, like we do traditionally in India, did not help. And I realized that I need to actually work on my core first. And then when I lifted 2 years postpartum with very little weights, I realized, okay, I'm still leaking urine. I did leak urine, just tiny drops. So for somebody who is not really as active, would jumping into running or doing what they seem is right would that be recommended, or one should know a little bit more about the effects of running, cycling, and how do they affect us postpartum?
Well, first of all, I realized as you were talking, I didn't answer your last question very well. You asked about how would people do a self-assessment, and I didn't even answer that. So I think I kind of want to answer that because it'll help me answer the next question. I think the things to know is that after you have a baby, whether you have a cesarean birth or a vaginal birth, it is normal in the early phases to leak urine, to feel like you can't control gas or poo very well, to have pain, to feel weak, to feel pressure. That's all very normal. It would just be like after you have a knee injury, you have swelling, you have pain, you can't move it very well. It's just muscles in a different area. So first of all, knowing that that doesn't mean that something went wrong. It's just a sign that something has gone on. But just like the knee, everything should get better with time. So you should notice the pressure is better, the leaking is better, you can control your gas better, your poo better, that maybe you have discomfort with sex or intercourse, that's getting better. So I guess anything that's not getting better, any of those things that are not getting better, or you feel maybe they're getting worse, and usually that comes with an increase in some sort of activity. Like you said, you're lifting more, or you're starting to pick your toddler up or something like that. You're starting to do more housework. It usually will be associated with an increase in some type of activity. So I think something that's not going away. Okay, I think we used to just say, well, you should be happy you had a baby. This happens when we have a baby. And I think that's one of the biggest messages. Again, it would be like me saying to you, your knee's not right. Oh, you have to live with it. You know that there's options. And I think it's the same thing with this. So I guess to answer your question, are those things okay to go back to? I would throw it back at the knee again. And if you said to me, Melissa, I'm feeling great, can I start cycling? Then I would say, why not? Or if you said, can I start running? I would say, yes, but start slow, and then I would say, I want you to listen to what your body's telling you. Are you leaking? Are you having pressure? Are you having pain? That doesn't mean you've broken your body. It just means your body's telling you, hold up a little bit. Maybe this is a bit too hard, or maybe you're going too fast, or maybe you have something else going on. Maybe you're weak. Maybe you're just weak, and you need to focus on that a little bit, just like I would with your knee. If you're saying, Melissa, it hurts when I run, then I would look at your knee and I would find out, are you missing some motion, or are your muscles too tight, or are your muscles too weak? And that's the same if you're having those symptoms, in your pelvic floor. It doesn't mean you've done damage, but more what's going on. Yeah. Do you have too much tension? Do you not have enough strength? Are your hip muscles, are your pelvic muscles? Because everything around there is important too. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Just to add on, how important is posture? For example, I was cycling, and I realized, I still had pain in the lower back. So it's like, no, it still has not become perfect, and I don't even know if it becomes perfect. So that's when I realized, okay, I need to undergo some help, some guidance, because now when you hunch and cycle, so I still had pain. So how important, I realized I have posture. So I realized now if I need to cycle, I don't really have to hunch so much. So when it comes to cycling, running, sometimes we might not have a very good posture. So what would you say to that? How important is posture?
I feel like I never want to make it sound that there's a perfect posture, because then you have people walking around feeling like they're always doing something wrong. However, I'm just going to use an example of let's say I was in the clinic today. I had one lady come in postpartum 5 weeks, and she came in because she said, I just want to be proactive. I feel great. So I'm not going to pick apart her posture. Do you know what I mean? Why? She feels great.
Yeah.
Whereas I had another lady come in, she was having pressure in her pelvic floor prolapse. She was worried about prolapse. And I assessed her vaginally. I assessed her in lying down, and I also assessed her in standing, because most people have their symptoms when they're standing. And I asked her to stand a couple different ways and I said, do you see how they both feel? In one posture, she was really kind of tucking her bum under, and it was kind of a compressed posture. And then I said, can you stand up almost a little bit taller? Like, just think about not being so slouchy. And she said, you could just see her eyes light up. Like, oh, that feels different. And so in that case, I think it's important. Right. And so for you, I would probably, like, just using the example on the bike, I would probably play around with it. I would look at you in the clinic, and I would make a couple suggestions, and then I would say, go try it. Go try this for a little while and see if it makes a difference. And you might have, if you're having a hard time, if you find out, you say, oh, it feels so much better when I do this, but I can't maintain that. Then I might look to see, do you have a weakness that's stopping you from holding that? Or do you have maybe some tension in your spine or your ribs that's making it hard? So I think if at the end of the day it feels better, I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah. And also, since we've discussed all about this is how it should be. Like we talked about how overwhelming it becomes. And there was this one episode where you talked about the physiological aspects of us being human beings. We're physiological human beings. Sometimes we're just manifesting symptoms because we've heard too much about it. We're scared. And we look at pregnancy and birth. As much as knowledge is important, it is very important to know the right perspective for it. And it was a fantastic episode. I have heard a lot of, podcasts talking about the effect of mind on your body is so relevant. And in that context, I would like to ask you, we attach damage to pregnancy. We attach damage to postpartum. I don't look the way, everybody tells me it will take time. Everybody tells me it's okay. Sometimes we're not emotionally ready. I was not. It was traumatic for me. I underwent something I had imagined absolutely differently. I did tell myself, okay, if this happens, it's okay, Divya, but I was not okay. So there were so many things running in my head. So I did attach damage to my own pregnancy and postpartum. And so many of us do subconsciously. We might not realize it. We might not admit it. So even when we talk about so many important things, and it's important, it helps healing, knowing things, knowing that there's help out there, the people who can guide you better. When we say damage, how else should we look at it? It's not damage. And probably it took me a lot of time to realize.
Yeah. I struggle with that because I started my Instagram account and my podcast and everything because I felt there was a lack of awareness. And everyone would come in and say, why don't they tell us this? Why don't they tell us this? So I started talking about it. But then I could see, not just me, but all the other accounts, it creates fear in people. It really does create fear. People say, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this and I'm not doing this. And she said I should do this. Yeah. And so I really have to get back every once in a while and check, because what I mean to say is just education. It's not a lecture or anything. It's just education. But I agree. I had my first baby 8 years ago, and there was none of this. There was no social media. I didn't know any of this. I got into this area because of my own issues after childbirth. And I would also describe I had very traumatic births, both of them. However, I also think maybe because my perspective is different because I'm a physio and I see people come in and I see how much they improve. And I can see in every other area of the body too. Look at how resourceful and resilient our body is, really, when you look at it. Look how much we can do to it and that it survives. And I think I see also, I have a lot of perspective because I see so many people come into the clinic, and the ones that sit there with the sad face and they say, I'm broken, fix me, they don't do as well as the women that come in and say, I want to take care of my body for the rest of my life. I'm really interested in learning. This is what I'm having. What can I do to help myself, type of thing. And it literally is a mindset, because I think it's like anything. I don't want to get older and have gray hair either. I don't want to have wrinkles. but it is what it is. And I think we can either look at it and think, oh my gosh, look at the stretching in my belly that came from having a baby, or, look at how I look different, but look at how cool my kids are too, and I did that and my body did that and my body recovered from that. So I think, I totally know what you're saying. And I don't know if I'm giving you the answer that it deserves. I see people obviously for their physical issues. They come to see me for their physical issues, but it is always tied to their mental health, always. And so I think whatever we can do to, I'm not saying shove aside the problems, but I'm saying also see the good side, or see how resourceful your body is.
Yeah. And right when you were saying this, I do understand that there are no right answers to. There cannot be, because it's so significant to us realizing it's on realization. So if you tell somebody, okay, exercise, they don't feel like it, they won't do it. And if I feel extremely motivated by exercising, it just pushes me. It might not be the same for somebody else. And similarly, I could think of Divi, my daughter. She falls all the time. She hurts herself. There was once she bled. She was like, okay, yeah, I bled. It's fine. I bled. I'll be okay. And also, I don't like to talk about it, but with my own experience, since I was in a very bad state after giving birth, and it's so fresh, and I had a cesarean, and I did not accept my stitches. And after 4 weeks, there was lots of water down there. And a lot of water would gush out. They were not healing as much as anybody else will heal. The water started coming every week, and I had to go to my doctor every week. I realized that it's me. It's me not accepting my stitches. And then I had to talk to myself and, tell myself, you are fine. You'll be fine. And that's when I started healing. So I do understand what you're saying. And it's so important. The moment we realize our bodies are miraculous, I think I'm going into a very trance state, but
no, it's very important. And I think as I practice more and more, I talk more and more about this kind of stuff, because I think it's the most important thing is the mental health and the positivity, so that because things happen during birth and you can't control all of that. So you can either kind of be sad about it, or you can, and I'm not saying you should, there's a whole nother episode for you to talk about birth trauma.
Yeah.
But I think that just understanding, like having the attitude that I can do this, I have the tools, I know who to reach out to. I'm not perfect right now, might never be, but I know who to reach out for help, and
yes. And to know that kind of a help is available is important. And why education becomes important, because it tells you, okay, there is good stuff out there. And I personally do think that within a 6-week mark, we should also go and check our physiotherapists, because if we don't feel good about how we are, probably getting guidance than realizing with time would be better. So what would you say to that? What do you think?
Well, yeah, I absolutely agree. I actually tell people, I tell my clients when they say, when should I see you after? I say, as soon as you're ready. And I've seen people as early as 2 days after, not because I'm saying to them, you must get going on your exercises, we need to get you ready for running, but because they're sitting at home and they're terrified about what they are feeling.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is related to muscles. And I always say, you're not going to get rehab advice from your doctor. That's not their specialty. Just like you wouldn't have been given exercise guidelines from your doctor after your knee injury. That's from a physiotherapist.
Yeah.
And so what I often do, I do most of my appointments in the first 6 weeks online. I do them with people around the world. And whenever they're ready, this is what I usually say. How are you doing? How did it go? And they'll say whether they had a vaginal birth or a C-section birth. How are you feeling? And are you having a hard time with anything in your day? And sometimes they'll say, I can't get out of the bed with my baby without my tummy hurting. So I might talk to them about support bands or support belts, or I might talk to them about how to engage their muscles a little bit so that they can have help getting up, or I'll tell them how to roll differently. They might say, I've had people before say, I feel really good and I'm scared that I'm going to do too much. Can you talk me through what's appropriate? So I always say, I'm going to meet you where you're at. We'll see where you're at. And then I want to hear what your goals are, what you're having a hard time with. And some people might say, I don't want to do anything, Melissa. I want to rest for 6 weeks. Whereas I see people sometimes that are high level athletes and they want to be doing a little bit more. So I'll talk to them about what's safe. So I personally say, and I've actually been talking to educating all the doctors and midwives in my community to explain to them, I'm not going to give your clients any dangerous information. And they like to hear that, because then those women aren't calling them with their panic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand, because it's also in adulthood. For example, I mean, I'm going back to children again, but in adulthood, what really happens is we become on our own. You're on your own. Birth is normal. So recovery is normal. You're on your own. Whereas a child going through life looks, even when they fall, she looks up at me. Am I all right? Like, yeah, you're fine. You'll be fine. So she's like, yeah, I'm fine. Somebody is telling me we need to be talked through a lot of things.
Yes.
So as much as information may overwhelm us, these kind of stories, 80% or 90% of you women actually do well just with a little bit of advice. And that advice is significant coming from a specialist.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I think I do most of the time, is when they tell me, Melissa, I'm leaking poo a little bit. I'm like, okay, yep, that's normal. I said, you should know. And then these are some things you can do about it. These are some things, but they just need to be told that they're normal. And they just need to be told that's part of it. And then they can relax. You can just see the weight come off their shoulders. And I think that is very important.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to wait 6 weeks to hear that you're okay.
Yeah. And also know that probably a lot of things that may seem huge later can be managed, because you're not broken. That's what we're talking about. You're not broken with pregnancy and postpartum. So Melissa, just to ask you, I did see that you're taking a lot of online classes. So how do those help? The question is, because if you're not seeing somebody, we think of physiotherapists as seeing us in person, and just to give our audience a perspective if they want to reach out to you. Yeah,
absolutely. When I first started seeing people in the clinic, I was noticing patterns over and over and over again. Like, everybody's an individual, but there's also the same amount of education they all want to know about, and I was starting them all kind of in the same place. My caseload is getting so busy. I have a very long wait list, and I think, how can I make this so that they can work on this at home? Because in the first 6 weeks, I actually don't feel like I need to touch you. Yeah. I feel like it's a time to rest, and I don't need to work on your body. I don't need to assess you. I just need you to know you have a few things to work on. And so not only do I do online one-to-one appointments like this, like just talking with people, and I can see them through the screen. I can look at their posture. I can look how they're lifting their baby, and I can talk to them about things. But I have an online program that you work at your own pace. There's 2 parts. You can either do it during pregnancy to prepare for birth, or you can start postpartum, or you can do it all. And in the pregnancy section, I teach you about the muscles of the core. I teach you about your pelvic floor. We talk about pelvic pain and support belts and what to do when you're having pain, different exercises. We talk about birth preparation and thinking about how to learn to relax the pelvic floor for birth, different ways to push when thinking of relaxed muscles, perineal massage. I walk them through all of that. And at the end of every module, I say, these are reasons you'd want to go see a physiotherapist. So I talk them through when they should also go see someone in person. Okay. And then postpartum, the first module is called Start Here. And it's very gentle. It's about breathing and just breathing and just understanding what's gone on with you. And then the next module is I'm ready for more. So people can move on to it in week 6, week 8, week 12, whenever they're ready. But it starts to work them through feeling their core engage when they lift their baby or when they lift their laundry, helping them just do their day-to-day mom tasks, then how to get back to lifting weights, how to get back to running. And so it walks them through step by step with videos, with written information. I've tried to make it as simple as possible.
Yeah. It also helps because we're human beings. We were assessing you. We don't know your background. So if you understand your background, you're going to help me. You're going to help your recovery. You're going to help yourself going back to there's no going back to, but feeling the best of what you think you are at. So Melissa, before we wrap up after this insightful conversation, I would go back to that one question that everybody has, that it was very different for a previous generation. Like my friend asked me that it's very different for our moms. They never prepared probably as much. And they turned out fine, or probably never told us that they had those kind of problems, or probably they did not have those kind of problems. So why does it become different for us? And why is it advocated that we should learn and prepare ourselves during pregnancy and postpartum? And why is it any different from our moms?
I think it's a good question. And I can speak to what I think is true for my culture. And I think, again, this is what happens in my culture. I would say, first of all, that you're right. I don't know how much our moms talked about this kind of stuff. It was even more taboo with that generation. And I can tell the women that come to see me that are beyond 50, they are way more embarrassed to talk about it than people younger. I think that just our age generation is talking about it more. So I would think that that's one thing, is it's underreported. Yeah. The other thing in my culture is that women are older and older having babies. And women used to have babies in their 20s, and 30 was old not that long ago. And now, moms are young here in North America that are 20. Moms are more often 30 when they're having children. So I think that too, because our body changes as we get older and it doesn't stretch as much. So I think the other thing in my culture is that we are left to recover on our own. We've all moved away from our families. I live about a 12-hour drive from where my dad lives. I don't live in even the same community as my parents or my husband's parents. So I think we don't have as much time to rest as we used to. There used to be more of a communal help for mom to recover. And in my culture, there is way more push to get back to activity and to lose the weight and get into your clothes before. So women are doing a lot more. Whereas I would say women before, they definitely had demanding jobs. Maybe they had more children and they worked around the house more, but it's not the same as running and lifting heavy weights all the time. Do you know what I mean? And so I think it's a lot of those reasons. And I also think that as a culture, we are more stressed.
Yes.
And so we overthink things. Everything's tense. Do you know what I mean? I think those are the big reasons.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. As much as information, I mean, we all are supporting the fact that information should go out there. But I would also say that, caution yourself when you get an information that doesn't seem right. It's your right to go to somebody who is a specialist in this. You would realize the amount of difference, the fear that comes in when you learn something half-baked, or you eat a half-baked cake. It's going to upset your stomach. With the information that's out there, that's important, that's significant. It's also important to caution yourself and know where to go to get the right information, because that will minimize half your problems. And probably, you won't have any problems. You won't have as much stress. Also, to add to the fact that in our culture, we have a lot of help. Mm-hmm. I live with my family. So right now I'm at my mom's place, maternal house. And there, with my husband, I have my mother, my father. Mm-hmm. But there's this one thing with pelvic health issues. My mom never told me leaking urine is okay. So we're not talking about these embarrassing symptoms. Mm-hmm. So, those things are really not talked about.
And I think I would challenge everybody listening, just ask your mom. If you have that relationship with her, just ask her in confidence, or someone else in your family that's older than you, and just say, listen, I'm learning about this. What changed for you after you had your babies? And just ask them. Yeah. And I think you'd be surprised how many of them just think it's normal. They don't bring it up because they've been told it's normal, or they've never talked about it. So it's just part of their life now. But you'll probably be able to guess how that affects their mental health. I think that's the important thing, is that that we're not going to come out of having babies being perfect, but I think we should be able to maximize our mental health, be happy in our relationship, be happy in our bodies. And so I would challenge people to ask their moms.
That's an absolutely amazing advice. And that's what they say about pregnancy as well. Go to your mothers and ask those questions. What happened to you during labor? How did you birth? How did you push? And those are important things. To learn those things are important. And just to, before we wrap up, Melissa, also, is there something else? I think we've had an amazing conversation, and I just wanted to just run, but we are bound by time. So is there something to end with you'd like to just add?
I feel like you've done a good job of covering everything. I mean, I think that the message at the end is just that, you have to do what's important to you. If you're happy living with those symptoms, then that's fine. I always ask people when they first come in, what made you make this appointment? And they always tell me, and I ask them to order it and how important it is for them. And everybody's order is different. Some people are more bothered by how their tummy looks. Some people are more bothered by their leaking. And I think that that's important for you, is to make a list of the things that don't feel right in your body. And then I think you have to decide whether it's important for you to seek out help, because it's not my job to tell you that you need to. Yeah. I'm just here to tell you what you can do, and that there is help, but it is your life and your quality of life. And I think that everybody should address the things that are holding them back.
Yeah. And Melissa, I really like the fact that you talk about individual issues, not really giving general advice. I remember I talked to you about a problem related to diastasis recti when we were discussing like last month, what topic we should choose and talk about. So I really like the fact that it's not generic advice. All the information that you learn about yourself is to make you get in tune with your body. So you ask questions to know what's happening to me, and then learn whether I want to raise an alarm and just be happy with it. So that's where mental health comes in. All the same process with a different perspective can bring in profound results. Learning can, again, either make you fearful, or if you actually understand the purpose of learning from anybody is to figure out what's happening to you, how you should be healing yourself. It's you're an individualistic approach. I really love that, Melissa. And thank you so much for coming on board and giving us your time. It was wonderful talking to you. Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I'm honored that I was asked from way across the world to do this. So yeah, I hope it was helpful.
That was Melissa, helping us understand the basics of how you should approach pelvic floor issues, how you should approach postpartum healing. And we really wish this was able to help you somewhere down the line. And if it did, do tell us that. Absolutely do tell us that. I think what has stayed with me is the part of the conversation where Melissa says, you're not broken with pregnancy, postpartum, and getting into the whirlpool of feeling like a mother all the time, where you want to go back to a part of you that was there before you became a mother. But in all of this, in all of the transition phase, in all of the settling down, you're not broken. You're not. And I love that. Let me know what was the best part of this episode that you liked. And before we end this episode, I would like to urge you to do that one thing that Melissa said in the episode, that go back to your mothers. It's important. Asking those embarrassing questions, if you are comfortable, is really significant, and it's going to help you become aware. You may need help comprehending what information is being given to you, because we did say be cautious when something really stresses you. And that is when you can seek the guidance of experts. But go back to your mothers and ask if these things existed, and you will see, you'll feel normal all of a sudden. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to get in touch with Melissa, I have shared all her contact information in the show notes. If something bothers you on the similar lines, and if there's anything else that bothers you, and you want to share it with me, you want to have a particular topic of the episode to come this season, please share it with me. And take care, everybody. Take care. Follow me on Instagram at @Divya Kapoor Books. You can DM me directly there. It's easy. I'm quick to respond, or send me an email. The website is also available, https divyakapoor.com, DIVYAKAPOOR. And remember, it is important to speak to each other, to tell each other our stories, to connect and make us feel normal and powerful human beings, powerful enough to progress in our healing. We need stories of progression. Do share if you have any story of progression yourself. In the next episode, we're going to have a doula story to make you understand how birth unfolds, the beauty of birth. So stay tuned, take care, and keep listening. There is a field beyond fear, where the body is empowered to take on labor and birth. To land there, it is crucial to take birth education. To enroll into our unique labor and birth preparation course, reach out to us at www.birthagni.com or scroll through all available prenatal and postnatal preparation classes. Thank you for listening, all in the spirit of birth, womanhood, and freedom. Remember, you got the power. This podcast is about physiological birth and does not offer or claim to provide medical knowledge or diagnosis.